lost and alone in the open ocean. No help coming. No land in sight. Strength, stamina failing, clawing at the surface. Desperate for every breath that could be your last. What could be worse than this hell? What could be worse? That could be worse. Oh yes, my fellow hunters, it's time to talk underwater combat with a mind for its eventual return. And call me crazy, but I kinda have a feeling that it's more likely than not. I feel like looking to the future as Monster Hunter World 2, or whatever form that takes the 6th gen rolls around, well, Capcom want to have another crack at it, and with everything World lets them do, a part of me thinks that they would absolutely, well, blow it out the water. Because I'm hilarious. Whether I actually want it to come back, that's a more interesting question, because I would posit initially, right, that everyone who's not experienced what it's like to be in the water with something terrifying is being like, yeah, I could go for that. But then the rest of us that have experienced underwater combat and essentially gone through, why won't the camera and the controls do anything I want them to do? Well, maybe not so much, but that's the key right there. That is the key. I think that the actual idea, the mechanic itself, the essence of it,
moisture is the essence of wetness,
is really quite stellar. I think it just came a little bit too early. I think they tried to reach for something they couldn't quite grasp yet. And I think if we were to experience it for the first time in World 2, we'd just be singing its praises. Now, it very much might be rose-tinted goggles. I might very much not be remembering just how it was, but I can't help look at the potential, because the controls really were the main thing. The clunkiness of it is what let it down. Yes, it was much slower, but it was very much, well, a whole new experience. Having that full range of movement and having to deal with monsters, well, not just, you know, generally around you, but from underneath you, from above. Obviously, flying wyverns do the above, but it's a very different way when it's something like a gobule hovering on top of you. Hi! And then you look up and and then, oh, okay, that's fine. And I just look at some of the monsters that we have and can't help but feel like experiencing them on their home turf advantage would be something unforgettable. Take Namielle. Imagine Namielle underwater. It would be very easy for them to give Namielle an underwater fight component. Of course it would. The Abyss Dragon. And imagine, if you will, a phase of the fight where he makes everything go pitch black. Like you are truly incredibly deep beneath the ocean's might, being crushed under the pressure as not even light can reach you, and you just see in the gloom the beautiful illumination that is Namielle drifting round you, preparing for its onslaught. That would be the most hauntingly terrifying but gorgeous visual just ever. And then feeling that pulse of electricity and everything lights up once more in glorious glow. Oh, imagine how tense that would be. You could play with light so much underwater in a way that's much harder to do on the surface. Hell, you can play with a lot of things much better underwater than you can do on the surface. That much more full range of movement. So imagine something ice-based underwater, freezing chunks of, well, the sea that you're fighting with to create obstacles that you have to swim around through under. They've experimented that with Volcano and the ice walls everywhere, making the battlefield much harder to traverse, having you either destroy them or run around them, and it's really cool to see that. Terrain alteration, putting physical barriers in your way. It's something I've always wanted and something that I don't think has ever really been explored properly. So Volcano has been really cool to see, but that underwater, where you could make the structures so much more than just a wall coming out the ground, actually make them all around you, swim up through them, down under them, past them, and you just put this riddled ice 3D maze that you're having to fight this slithery dragon through. That would be so bloody cool. A full 3D freeze. Or imagine you're fighting along underwater, you get to the monster's super move and it raises you and it to the surface, freezes the surface, and temporarily you're fighting on land and suddenly you have to, okay, switch to land controls, here we go, alright, land fighting, good, and you're on this little island that it's made and put you both on as like this mini arena to do a bit of glorious battle, and then slowly it starts to melt from the outside, getting smaller and smaller and smaller until you fall back in, and then it dives in after you. You could do some really interesting set pieces, not to mention the level of siege creatures you can do, because underwater things get big. See Sedeus. God, I love that theme so much. I miss you, buddy. Just as I miss Legircus. Obviously, underwater is the perfect time to bring him and all the Leviathans, a category that is majestic, and I desperately want everyone who's only ever played World, the Fifth Fleet Hunters, to experience, because they are absolutely lovely. But again, the question remains, is it something that's actually going to work out, or is it going to be another marker of, this isn't the best thing in the world? I believe the underwater movesets would be the best they've ever been. I mean, obviously there's only been a couple implementations of them, so it'd be very surprising for them to go backwards given the groundbreaking progress of, well, every weapon in World. They all feel so slick, so impactful, so fun, and translating that into water, yes, it just opens up, well, the whole new world in every facet of the game. There's also an argument to eventually be made for a system whereby we can stay in the air, maybe like a Wing Drake backpack, to actually take the fight to permanently flying monsters and have that kind of 3D space opened up, but that's a whole other, well, kettle of fish. And talking of fish, underwater combat. Alright, look, I tried, alright? It kind of worked, alright? But the inherent essence of this is, well, being above the waves is all well and good, but when you go below them, if you get what I'm saying. Chiefly, does it add enough? Will it be ever more than a gimmick? Will it be something that you actually seek, that you want? Personally, I'm all in favor of having underwater as, well, a thing that you can do without necessarily having underwater combat. Now, what I mean by that is if you can swim around and, you know, move freely, and there are sections of the map that are covered in water, but you don't really want to be finding a big open watery zone and slowly swinging your sword through, well, the liquid. I didn't want to say water again because I've said it or not, but swinging your sword through the liquid just doesn't sound that great either, does it? So instead, you have monsters that can put you in water or trap you there and you have to escape, or you have to swim past them and avoid them. Maybe you can do a bit of damage, but it's much less effective than getting them on land. Maybe you could make it an actual part of the hunt, a mechanical thing to deal with, like, alright, this monster likes being underwater, we need to mitigate that. We don't just need to dive in and try and stab it to death, because it's so polarizing. It always has been. Using it as maybe more traversal, challenge, puzzle, obstacle as opposed to straight up battleground might be the way to do it. To unify, well, the sect of people that look at underwater combat as, I wanna die, I don't wanna live anymore, I really wanna die so bad.
please return me to the dark abyss. I long for death's sweet kiss.
And then the other end, the whole 5 of them that look at it as
under the sea, darling, it's better down where it's wetter, take it from me.
But at the end of the day, the advantages, I think, vastly outweigh the potential negative of it being a frustrating experience. I believe with what they've learnt, with where they're currently at with Monster Hunter, they can fix the major issue, which always was the actual controlling of it. How fluid it felt to interact with. And once that is done, well, then you give yourself access to so many mechanical ideas to explore, so much room to design and create, along with a plethora of old monsters to bring back and brand new ones to design, and it just, well, it opens up so much for the future of the series. You also now, with the way that world maps are designed, can so elegantly weave water and land together seamlessly, as opposed to, well, having it much more, this zone's water, this zone's not, and yeah, there was zones with a bit of land and a bit of water, but it was very much, you know, a division, whereas now you can very much more naturally have it. You can have, well, platforms above water, and if you fall in, fuck, you now have to deal with being underwater with it till you can haul yourself back out. The idea of the original flooded forest that we did see the Tesla Geocrus in, that natural mix where maybe you can be walking through waist height in the water fighting normally, but patches of it are too deep and you go plunging in and have to swim through an underground tunnel and surface somewhere else in the bog. That would be a really little neat thing to have to deal with. You could work in environmental traps as well. So I don't think it's really much of a question of, do we want to swing sword underwater at monster swimming near us, and more of a question of, can we add that new dimension of play, quite literally, to expand and enhance the experience and justify monsters that otherwise we couldn't? And I think the answer is most definitely yes. I think you can implement it in a new, more refined way that feels good to interact with, that lets you bring in everything that comes with an underwater experience. That's my 2 cents on your underwater combat. I hope it somewhat made sense. Let me know what your thoughts are, definitely. Let me know if you think it should come back, how you would personally put it in. I love to get these discussions going on. But for now, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more, and I will see you soon. Oh, goodbye.
Rage Gaming with the video float.
But that's all that's really relevant at the mo, but I'm still gonna leave this up so you patrons know that I love you even though the outro's no longer that kind of relevant. But the new one's being worked on and it's gonna be a truly badass song, and don't worry, I won't be doing any rapping on it. I'm gonna go now. This was shit.